Hi, you're watching India Today Global with me, Ishita Mitra, and the big news we're tracking for you today comes from Canada. Justin Trudeau has announced that he will be stepping down as the Prime Minister and the leader of the Liberal Party in the face of rising discontent over his leadership. Now, this was long in making given Canada's rising problems over high inflation, housing crisis, and massive influx of immigrants. But this resignation does leave us with a few questions. Who's going to take over from Trudeau now, and what does this mean for India-Canada ties? So to put this development into perspective, we are now being joined by Dr. Priyanka Singh. She is an associate fellow at Manohar Parker Institute for Defense Studies and Analysis, and somebody who's been closely tracking the developments in Canada. So thank you, Dr. Singh, for joining us.
Thank you, Ishita, for having me.
All right, so my first question to you is Trudeau has resigned, and one clear message that was reflected in his speech yesterday was that, his personal unpopularity with Canadians had become an increasing drag on his party. So, what do you think, are the factors that led to his farewell in such a manner?
I think, there were domestic problems at Trudeau's end, the rebellion within his own party. But if you look at his exit,
Yes.
and that too during an election year, I think you have to look at a combination of factors. And it was not only domestic factors, but also, I think, majorly what was happening with the external relations of Canada.
Yes.
And here, of course, the most important part was the downward trajectory that India-Canada relations had taken over the last couple of years. I think the problem, of course, between Canada and India has been there for a long time, but how things polarized in the last couple of years, I think that is very important. If really one needs to analyze the circumstances under which Trudeau has decided to resign. Also, if you look at Canada's relations with the United States, I think they were somewhat, ever since Donald Trump was elected as the president last November, I think I think the Canadians were kind of in for some kind of a shock, I would say,
Yes.
because of the kind of statements that President Trump had given on Canada. And he has not only said that Canada should become a part of the United States, and he's not said it once, I think he's said it more than once.
Yes.
I think that is something which has really I would say, dented the image of Trudeau. And I think his exiting the office, I think, was only a matter of time, considering the kind of problems that he was surrounded by.
Yeah.
But I think if you talk in terms of an immediate trigger, I think it was, I think Trump's statement and how he kind of really approached the whole issue was one of the major reasons in that sense. And of course, not to discount the rebellion within his party, because 50 members of his own party in the parliament, I think they were demanding that he resigns. And and also and there are reports to say that this was something which was bound to happen. It was not a matter of choice for Trudeau. When his party was would be convening in the coming days, I think this was something which was bound to happen, that his own party would kind of really pressurize him to exit.
Exactly. You mentioned that, reports had been circulating for over a week now that he might soon resign. So it had become a matter of when and not if for Trudeau's resignation. And you also mentioned, how domestic factors and international factors both played a sort of a role in triggering this resignation. So you talked about Trump, and Trump had issued a threat. He said that he would impose a 25% tariffs on imported Canadian goods if Canada fails to control the influx of drugs and immigrants to United States. So how much do you think, that threat and the way Trudeau handled it contributed to this resignation?
Initially, I think what Trudeau was trying to do after Donald Trump was elected to office was the fact that he was just trying to kind of really showcase that he was very.
Yes, he was on board with that.
Yes. And but I think things didn't turn out the way he was projecting it out to be. So in due course, I think he also understood that, like probably that sort of a gambit is not going to pay off. And Trump, as I said, he didn't stop kind of saying what he had to say once. He repeated that.
Yeah.
And it's a big thing for a very for a sovereign country to kind of really hear
Yeah.
that your the mighty neighbor next door is kind of like envisaging something like that, like
Yeah.
having a merger. And Canada is a big country. I think somewhere Trump's statement may have really dented the psyche of an ordinary Canadian as well. It's not about politics only. So that like somebody next door, somebody as mighty as the United States is talking about a merger of the United States and Canada, and that really puts the whole existence of this state of Canada into question. I think that is something which is very important for us to take note of.
I think Trump's statement, and his continuous mocking of Trudeau about Canada merging with United States or becoming the 51st state of America, I think that escalated the crisis for Trudeau. So my next question to you is now what's next? We have seen, a lot of contenders, names coming up, whether it's Anita Anand, Chrystia Freeland, Mark Carney. So who do you think is now likely to replace Trudeau in the Liberal Party?
you know Kind of really choosing Trudeau's successor, it's not going to be very quick, I think, because it's
Yeah.
going to take its own time. Like the party is going to really process his successor, and I think Trudeau also knew this, and that is why he was trying to delay things in that
Yeah.
sense. Like the parliament, which was supposed to meet the end of this month, I think he was trying to kind of really
Yeah.
postpone it to a later date, like so that his party also kind of gets time to sort of
Also, it's an election year, so a lot of
Yes, yes,
political
yes.
calculation will have
So
to go in.
yeah, you're right. I think they are on a very tight sort of a timeline,
Yeah.
and Trudeau was very well aware of that. And the reason behind the fact that he was trying to kind of postpone the convening of the parliament, I think that is something which he was trying to do, to kind of really give his party to kind of like regather itself, reconvene itself before the elections later this year. But I think in terms of the potential successors, I think Anita Anand's name has been doing the rounds, and I think she has some kind of credentials also to which have been kind of really highlighted all over the media now, that like how well kind of qualified she is to really take over after Trudeau's exit. But there are, of course, other names as well, like Mike Carey, who, as you all know, I think he was the governor of the Bank of Canada. And he has his own credentials, and the latest reports, if you see, I think Carey himself has kind of expressed his willingness that be he might consider kind of really competing to be the successor of Trudeau. So he has himself expressed his willingness, and for that is, of course, for the party to really take a decision. But we also have to look at the fact that the Liberal Party is at the moment, I mean, it's so kind of disjointed. I mean, there's so much of chaos because while Trudeau was the prime minister, I mean, 50 of his own party members, they were up in arms against him, and probably one of the greatest pressures that Trudeau was facing was within his own party. So we also have to see how the Liberal Party is trying to kind of really put itself together.
Now, to take a step back, I want to ask you Trudeau came to power a decade ago with a surprise majority, and for over a decade now, he led a major G7 country. So, what is the legacy you think Trudeau is leaving behind?
So yeah, as you said, Trudeau is like just short of completing his like uh, two terms. Like in fact, of course, the third term, in fact, because he called the snap elections in 2021, and I think like if you look at his legacy when he was elected as the prime minister in 2015, I think everything looked very favorable, and also and the big part of it was the kind of projection that he had made about himself, because he was very young. I think one of the youngest to be elected as the prime minister. Then probably the kind of issues that he was identifying with at the time of his elections and later also, like something to do, and the fact that he spoke about gender equality, and he actually implemented gender equality also in a way, because like having certain number of women also in his cabinet. And then his views on the issues of climate and all these things, like they sort of portrayed an image of Trudeau as a very progressive, as a very liberal, and a very sort of development oriented leader. But as like in due course, and especially after the 2019 elections, when his party lost the majority, and then he had to tie up uh, with the new Democratic Party, I think, and that was headed by the supporters of the Khalistan.
Yes.
I think that is somewhere, if not watershed, I think that was some sort of a um, turning point in Trudeau's kind of political career, in that sense, because like after that, his political choices became very polarized, and then the focus really kind of shifted from these big issues to like how to kind of really secure your government, and for that like making all sorts of compromises. And I'm not saying that his kind of the way he abided by the Khalistani agenda, and he really had members who were sympathizers of the Khalistan movement within his own cabinet and his own government. I think maybe that was his personal, like he had those personal inclinations, but like what is obvious is the fact that he was, of course, doing all that for political reasons, to kind of really maintain his majority, to be able to kind of remain in power. And I think all this, and the way he was kind of really handling the external issues, and unable to really take control of the state of affairs within his own party, within his own government, to kind of really about the rebellions, the rebel elements within his own government. I think that was one of the major failures, and I think if I were to kind of really pick up a timeline, I think it was by the time it was only it started probably at the time when he lost majority, and then he had to rely on his coalition partners.
You mentioned the Khalistani movement, so I have to ask you a question about India. How do you think Trudeau's resignation is going to impact India-Canada ties? Do you think now they will be able to sit down and talk about the Khalistani issue that has been, a point of contention between the two?
If you look at the present scenario, of course, it was a Khalistan issue that really kind of really damaged the whole this entire tapestry of the India-Canada relations. Because otherwise, if you look at India and Canada, both are democracies, both are very open, pluralistic societies. I think anyone would say that it's very natural for them to engage.
Yeah.
But this was one issue which really kind of did the maximum damage. And of course, we have to be mindful of the fact that all this happened in more in Prime Minister Trudeau's tenure.
Yeah, exactly.
So, as Indians, as I think the Indian foreign policy circles, I think they must be, I think this is a time for us to reflect, and also to kind of be very hopeful that, like from here on, I think India and Canada ties uh, could improve in that
Could
sense,
improve.
because if after elections a certain government comes to power.
All right. You mentioned about the Conservative Party. So, as of now, what the polls are saying, they are highly in favor of Conservatives coming to power later this year when Canada goes to polls. So, I just want to ask you, how do you think that development would impact India?
As I said, like any change, because, like what we've been through in the last couple of years, I think any change happening at the center of power in Canada, I think whether it is a change of the party that is in power, or a leadership within the same party, that is the Liberal Party, I think we should be hopeful that we are able to, and we've always been very hopeful that we should be able, as two countries, as two sovereign countries, to be able to sit across the table and sort our issues out.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Singh, for speaking to us on India Today Global and putting this story into perspective.